Thank you for joining us today for our first webinar here at Oklahoma Central Credit Union. We're going to give all the other attendees just a few minutes to get logged on, and we'll be starting in just a minute or so. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Janet Aramita. I'm the Financial Development Officer here at Oklahoma Central Credit Union. And today I also have Leah Bowles, our Director of Communication, and our Jen Martin, our VP of Retail, will be joining us. They will be answering questions in the question in the chat box today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Also, at any time, if you need to jump off the webinar, we will have a recording of this on our website and also on our YouTube channel. And thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first webinar that Oklahoma Central Credit Union has put on. So I ask that you be patient with us if we have any glitches or anything like that. And we're so excited that you joined us today for our Achieving Financial Goals, Building a Better Budget. And we'll go ahead and get started with it. On budgeting, a lot of people, we just don't like the idea of budgeting. It makes us nervous, it's scary. Why do we hate the idea? Please don't make me. It just can be overwhelming and it can be very intimidating at times. The reasons why we struggle with budget is we feel that they're too complicated and they are very intimidating, or we could feel that they don't necessarily reflect our values, or they're not reflecting our reality, or it could seem like a chore to follow it. And today we would like to help you overcome any of these fears that you may have about it. A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. That's why budgeting is so important, so that once we budget, we're able to be a little bit more financially secure and we can tell our money where it's going. What are goals? Some of the things that we need to look at when we're setting our budget is, do we have a short-term goal, a midterm goal, or a long-term goal? And we need to look at to see what it is that we're saving for with our goals. And it would be, are we saving for to buy our house? Are we saving for a vacation? Are we saving for retirement? Each person will be saving for different things, and most goals are not going to be the same as everyone else's because we're all individuals with our own individual needs. We also have what we call that stands for our goals as a SMART goal. That's a specific goal, it's a measurable goal, it's an attainable goal, it's a relatable goal, and it's also a timely goal that we'll be able to complete it. Now, here we give you an example of to pay down debt. This is just a broad example over different amounts that you can look at for saving and over the amount of time saving and what it would cost you each month. For instance, if you're saving for a dream vacation, putting $107 back over the next 28 months, you'll have $3,000. So it really just depends on what you're trying to do for it. Like I know for me, for instance, my long-term goal is retirement. My short-term goal is saving for a vacation. So it just depends on your own personal preferences on this. And please, during this webinar, do not forget we have the question and chat box open to be able to answer any questions you may have. We've also included a blank financial chart for you to be able at your own time to sit down and figure out what are your short-term goals, your midterm goals, and your long-term goals, and to be able to figure out how much you would need to set back each month to obtain those goals. Now that we know our goals, let's talk about budgeting. And your lifetime earnings. Now this slide is just an example over 10, 20, and 30 years. And it's an example of from 20,000 all the way to 80,000, how much money that you could make in your lifetime. Now this chart does not account for taxes or raises or anything like that. It's just the total amount of the income in those income brackets. Now, what budget? For a lot of us, some people think budgeting is, I want to do this to achieve my financial goals. I want to be able to have some of my dreams come true, trying to build that dream house, pay credit card debt off, use our money more efficiently, or become more financially secure. And some people may say, well, I'm young. I don't need to worry about becoming financially secure yet. But once we start budgeting and saving, the earlier we start, the easier that it is. Because for those of us that have vehicles, we have car problems happen, maintenance happen on them, or if you own a home, we have a hot water tank go out. Just a number of different things that if we're financially secure, if we're able to put money back for our emergency fund and our savings fund, it's not that big of a deal when an issue happens that could cost a lot of money. We look at obstacles to getting started. It's easy to procrastinate. I am a procrastinator when it comes to something I do not want to do. My entire team here can tell you that if it's a project that I'm just not crazy about, I will get it done, but I will wait till the last minute to get it done. So that's something too with getting our budget. We want to procrastinate. We're not sure of it. So it also may be that we fear lifestyle changes, that we feel if we start budgeting and we start setting money back for savings, we won't have the money to do the things that we would like to do. Or it's hard to confront our past decisions, whether it could be that we have past credit card debt, medical bills, we have liens we need to pay off. There's a number of different things that could be from the past that we're not wanting to face those. Or this is one of the main ones, is feeling there's never enough money at the end, whether it's feeling never enough money at the end of the month, never enough money at the end of every 2 weeks, however that it may be. That's a very common feeling. So here's a few things that we can do on keeping up with spending our money. We can, if you're comfortable with it, you want to keep a check register, you can do it that way. Keep all the receipts. You can use your debit card if that's easier than spending cash. I know for me, I would prefer my debit card over cash. Cash seems to just burn a hole in my wallet. And there's also several different types of software that we can use to go ahead and help us start tracking how we're spending our money. 4 rules of budgeting. What we need to always remember is don't worry about perfection. I like to compare budgeting to my gym membership. I get out of it what I put in. At the beginning of the year when I start working out, I'm real in tune with it. I'm eating right, making sure everything's going well. And then usually after a while, when we start seeing some results, we kind of start slacking off just a little bit on it. And so our budget is a lot of the same ways. It's our budget. We're completely in control of it. However you choose to set up your budget isn't going to be wrong because it's your budget that's made for you. Also, we want to look at the big stuff does make more of a difference than the small things. And a big one is make plans based on real life, not how we would like life to be. Instead of looking at things with, oh, I'm going to get that bonus in 2 months so I can afford to do that. That's not money that's in our hands yet. So we don't want to be counting on that because a number of different things sometimes can happen where finances do not come through that we're waiting on. And most importantly, we want to keep it simple. Now, ways to construct a budget. This is completely up to you and what's going to be easiest for you. I know someone that a paper budget's what's best for her. She carries around a notebook and each one of her items that are in it are different color coded because that's what works best for her. Excel spreadsheet or QuickBooks maybe work what's best for you. Or you may be like, I just want to do something completely different that'll be best for myself. And that's what it's about, is finding what is best for your needs and what's going to fit you and easiest for you to stick with. Now, let's create a budget together. Some of the things we want to look at when we're creating our budget is our income. We want to make sure that our withholdings are correct on our paychecks. We want to make sure that if it's 0, if you hold that out, so maybe you get a return at the end of the year, or if you have dependents, if you have claims that you can make, so it's less money during the year that you pay and you possibly could pay back at the end of the year, those are things you want to consider. You want to make sure that your income tax holding is correct on your paychecks. Another thing we want to look at, we do not want to count non-guaranteed income as income. For example, overtime. I know someone that a couple of years ago worked at a company that they got overtime quite a bit. In fact, it was every day. And she just got accustomed to that over the years. And one Monday morning, she went into work and they had an email from their corporate office letting them know that overtime was no longer acceptable. So for her, she had to figure out, what am I going to do now? Because my budget is based off of overtime being included in it. So that's where we talk about, we just really want to make sure it's on our income only. Bonuses are not always guaranteed. I actually worked for a company that we would get our bonuses every year at the end of the year. Most people that worked there used their bonus for their Christmas shopping. And probably about a month before bonuses were to go out, we got a notification that bonuses would not be going out this year. They had chosen to allocate the money in other ways. So those are some things you might count on something. You don't want to count money in your pocket until you actually have it in your pocket. Also, fluctuating income. If you work 38 hours a week, but you're guaranteed 35 hours a week, then have your budget go off of for 35 hours a week, not that extra 3 hours just in case. Another thing we want to look at, if we count on seasonal work for things, is that it's not always guaranteed. I actually have a friend of mine that used to work at the fair every year, and that was the money that they would use on their Christmas shopping. And several years ago, when they had signed up to do the fair again, they were let know that the job that they did there was no longer offered, and they just didn't need their assistance this year. And they had counted all year on that money for their Christmas money. So those are things that we just really want to remember when we're putting our budget together, is we don't want to count money that we don't have in our pocket. Expenses. This is something too we need to take into consideration. Are we saving for retirement? Do we have investments it's going to? And also our emergency fund. And you may say, I don't have an emergency fund. Well, just putting back even $25 a week, well, you will have $1,200 at the end of the year. Or if you put $50 every 2 weeks, or $100 each month. There's several different ways that we can do to save money to be able to put back into our emergency fund. And we always want to remember what our goals are. Is it a short-term goal, or a mid-term goal, or a long-term goal? What we're saving for when we're looking at doing our expenses for our budget. We also want to look at, make sure we're including, we've got to have on there our house payment and our rent. We have to have somewhere to live. We need to look at different utilities that we have going on. We want to make sure we've included all of our utilities in our budget as well. We want to make sure we've got our cell phone in there, our internet service, even things that we might not think of that we know we pay each month. We want to make sure that we include those in our budget. Also, we want to look at our food expense, like grocery shopping and dining out. For instance, grocery shopping. One of the ways that we can save money is, instead of buying name brand, we can buy generic brand. Also, dining out. If you find that you eat out, say 5 nights a week, one of the ways that you can help with cut on that is to start dining out 2 nights a week. Or if you at work, you go to lunch every day with your coworkers, start bringing your lunch a couple times a week and only eating out 2 times a week, and see the difference in the money that you can save. Another thing we have here on is coffee house for our Starbucks or different coffee shops. I know for me, a couple years ago, I used to stop every morning at Starbucks on my way to work and grab a coffee. Anyone that knew me knew that that was my routine. If I was late to something, it was because I was stuck in a Starbucks line. And one day I sat down and started figuring out how much money I'm spending on Starbucks each month. And it really surprised me to know it was over $100 a month. So what I did, I went to the grocery store. I bought the flavored coffee I like and different creamers. I make my own coffee at home now, put it in a to-go cup. And I went from spending over $100 a month to Starbucks to now $20 a month. It's my treat. Once a week, I stop there and I have that. That way I don't feel like I've completely cut it out, and I'm still enjoying my coffee every day, and I'm saving myself over $80 a month. So those are some different ways we can look at. We also need to include our transportation, especially with gas prices the way they are right now. You may have figured in at $50 a couple of months ago for your budget for gas. Well, now our budget is $80. So these are things that we have to keep in mind when we're building our budget. Also, if we have an automobile maintenance, that's why it's so important for us to have a savings account and our emergency savings. Say if our alternator went out, or your brakes go out, or you need new tires, those are things that cost quite a bit of money sometimes to get fixed or repaired or replaced. And it makes life easier when we have that emergency fund or our savings account back, that we can just automatically pull the money from that, and we don't have to stress or worry about where's the money going to come from. Also, another great thing is we can always do public transportation with Uber and Lyft. Another expense we need to always make sure we include is daycare if we have kiddos, babysitting, child support, whether it be you receive it or pay it. If you receive child support, we don't want to count that in our budget until we have it in hand. That's one of the things I know several people that will sometimes count on those payments to come through, and for whatever reason they have it. So you want to make sure that's where we're going to making our income off of real life and what our reality is. We also need to look at healthcare. Do we have to pay for our dental and vision? If you take medication every day, you need to make sure that you've included that in your budget. Also, if you have over-the-counter medications you take. We also need to look at your home insurance. If it's not rolled into your mortgage, that's something you'll have to pay. Our automobile insurance, just a number of different things you want to look at and see. Would it save you more money to pay something every month, say your auto insurance, or would it be better to pay it every 6 months, or would you be able to pay a large sum every year? There's a lot of different ways we can look at that on how to save us money on our budget. Also, our loan payments that we have, whether it be our cars or our home or it's a personal loan, those are payments that we have to make each month that we know that's going out. Also, credit card payments that we may have to make as well. And it might seem a little overwhelming when you start putting your budget together and putting all the things in place. But over time, it all does fall together. And you realize after 6 months of budgeting and saving money, how much you've saved and where you've come from, where you're at now with it makes a big difference. We also need to figure in expenses, gifts and celebrations. And you might be thinking, well, it's okay because that birthday's not till August. I've got plenty of time for it. But it's easier when we can plan ahead of time and save ahead of time. For me, for instance, I know July is an expensive month for me. It's an expensive month for me because majority of my family members' birthdays are in July. Friends' birthdays are in July. So I always know each time when I do my budget going forward, I always know that July is going to be an expensive month. If you know that you've got that baby shower coming up or that wedding to attend with a gift, just a number of different things, if you look at your calendar and see you're going to be coming up, it's always best to include that in our budget so that we know we have that money put back for it. And also don't forget, you can ask any questions in our chat box or our question box. Jennifer and Leah are there to answer any questions at all. Also, expenses, we want to look at recreation. Just because we're doing our budget and we're saving money doesn't mean we don't get to live anymore. It just simply means we're scaling back or cutting back a little bit on what we're doing. You still want to make sure that you have in your budget to have money to do the things that you enjoy and the hobbies that you like to take. And maybe instead of taking a 7-day vacation, you choose to take a 4-day vacation somewhere that's in a surrounding state that you can drive to help you save money, because we want to continue living even though we're saving money and budgeting. We're getting close to wrapping up the webinar, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask that to them. Also, we want to look at on our expenses for charity and pet care. If we have charities that we donate to, our pets, if we have those little fur babies, they're very expensive. I know I just added one to my family this weekend, and I already had my budget set up when I went to go to the store to get the crate, the food, everything. And it was $200. And ahead of time, before I had bought the puppy, I called my vet to make sure to get an appointment to see how much is it going to cost, and that's another $200. So you might think, oh, I want to get a pet. They're not that expensive. Well, just know it could be anywhere from $400 or more for that first part of having that. So those are some things we want to think about when we're looking at how we're spending our money. We also need to look at our banking. If we're being charged for a checking account, or we're being charged when we use our debit cards, or if we overdraw our checking account, how much are the NSF fees? And in this day and age, no one should pay for a checking account. Majority of financial institutions do offer free checking. And here at Oklahoma Central, we also offer rewards for our checking. So one of the things you might want to look at is look to see, does your financial institution offer you rewards for using your debit card? That's really nice that Oklahoma Central Credit Union, we give our members back a portion, and we have rewards with their checking accounts each time they swipe their card. So those are some things we want to think about as well. Now, what we can look at as to what can I do now on our action items for looking to increase our income. Over time, we could request that with our employer, or if possible, look to pick up a part-time job, something maybe in the evenings or different times on the weekends. And another big thing now is to sell things. Look around your house for clothes that you have in the closet that you bought that you never got around to wearing because you just didn't like that actually after all when you got home, or things that you've just bought and that you do not use. A great way to do that is to sell it online, sell it on Marketplace, different things like that, so that you're selling your items, but you're making money back for what you've already spent. Also, we want to look at decreasing spending. What are some ways that we can do that? How can we reduce our spending? How can we substitute our spending, postpone it, or possibly even forego it? But during these times, as we're thinking about the things of how can we increase our income and how can we decrease our spending, we don't want to forget our goals. Those are so important as we're going along the way. Some big busters, what we have our budget busters could be for our spending, as we want to choose on the thing of, you might ask yourself, do I need it? Do I need it now? Or what would happen if I didn't have it? I know for me personally, when I have to ask myself those questions, do I need it? I will forego that purchase because I obviously don't need it because I don't have the money for it. So that's something to look at, that you may forego a purchase, but it doesn't mean that you can't make that purchase later on down the road when you're more financially secure, when we have that emergency fund going, we've got that money in our savings account. So always try to think of it like that when it may come to something that we're wanting to purchase, as that I can get that at another time. And we always want to keep in mind, again, know our weaknesses and keep in mind of what our goals are. Now, we want to make sure we stay motivated. Old ways will not open new doors, and we want to remember that. We can visualize our success by doing, I know for me, for instance, when I joined the gym trying to lose weight, I had an outfit in my closet that I could not wait to get back into. So every couple of weeks, I'd pull that outfit out of the closet and try it on. Or if you're saving to buy a new home, put a picture on your refrigerator or on your screensaver on your phone of the perfect home that you think would be, to help keep you motivated and to see it during the day. Also, we want to stay organized and be realistic and be honest with ourselves. We also need to know we're going to have setbacks. That's just going to happen. So don't be too hard on yourself about it. You want to monitor your progress. Put a reminder in your calendar every 3 months to go off so you can look at and see, how much money have I saved? How much debt have I paid down? Where am I at in my emergency savings? Where am I at in my savings account? And you want to celebrate your successes along the way. You've done this hard work for it. You need to go ahead and just reward yourself for it. For instance, if you've stopped eating out 5 nights a week and you've really stuck to that 2 nights a week for 3 months, then go ahead, you can go out to a nice dinner. You've earned that. Now what we can look at is, what can we do now? And we're getting really close to wrapping up, so please don't hesitate to send those questions over that you may have. You can ask yourself, what can I do today? What can I do within 3 months? And what can I do this year? One of the things that we really need to remember is, this did not happen overnight. We did not get into the situations financially that we get into overnight, so you do not come out of them overnight. It takes time and discipline and patience with yourself to be able to stick to your budget and to be able to start saving money and get your emergency fund going and your savings account going. And you always want to remember, a budget is a springboard to your financial independence. Now, as we wrap up our webinar today, we will go ahead and stay on here for a few more minutes if anyone has any more questions. But I wanted to include in this last slideshow, if you find yourself that you're in the midst of possibly having to file for bankruptcy, or you find that you're overwhelmed with student loan debt, on this screen we have GreenPath Financial, and that is someone who we use here at the credit union, and they'd be more than happy to help you with any questions that you may have. Also, any member here at Oklahoma Central, we would be glad to help any of our members with, and even if you're not a member, any questions that you may have to help get you more financially sound, to get you more on the track of where you want to be financially. And I just want to say thank you so much for everyone that joined us today. We appreciate it. And please don't hesitate to give us your feedback. And we will stay on for just a few more minutes just to answer any questions that may come through. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar. Again, thank you for joining us today. We hope that you have a nice day.